What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cab Show, NFL Week 10. Shout out to my Indianapolis Colts. We are going to get a W this weekend. We are playing in Germany. We look at history and realize Germans, dude, they typically hate Americans. I mean, we go all the way back to, the 1940s. Germany they wanted to take over the world. Thank God they did it, but I hope the Indianapolis Colts survive in Germany, but we're playing the trash New England Patriots, which I think the Patriots are on the downslope right now. I think Coach Bill Belichick is definitely going to retire probably after this season or in the next at least couple of seasons, because right now we understand that Coach Bill Belichick is a great coach. Yes, absolutely, but he's without his boy Tom Brady. He's without the GOAT. And without the GOAT, what is he? A below 500 team? Didn't even make the playoffs last year. So without the GOAT, really Bill Belichick is a nobody. Without his boy Tom Brady, that's what we realized. But overall, I'm going to Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking the 2.5, even though it's in Germany. Hopefully, there's no more Nazis that exist in the world today. I'm praying that there isn't. But the Colts are going to win, and it's going to start with their run game and Jonathan Taylor. He's only got one touchdown this year, but obviously missing the first 4 games. But I think now this is Jonathan Taylor's breakout game. I think he's going to score 2+ touchdowns, rush for over 100 yards, and then yes, the Colts do have a good backup in Zach Moss. So I think Zach Moss is definitely a must pick up on fantasy. I really think you should keep him in fantasy football, because if you trade Zach Moss in fantasy, that'd be silly. It really would. It's just like this guy's pound for pound a great backup running back. He's going to give you what you need. He's going to get the yards. He's going to get those mean, hard yards, the 5 yards that you need. In the trenches, he's going to go all the way. So that's what I love about Zach Moss. I'm just not really set on Gardner Minshew. Yes, he's an okay quarterback, but we look at history in the past 10 years with Indianapolis. Look how many lists of quarterbacks that went through there that were really trash. Gardner Minshew's one of them. Andrew Luck was trash to me, was another one, and everybody was high in praise on Andrew Luck. The dude was a dud. He was a bust. He really was. Then we picked up not Matt Stafford. Freaking, I'm having a brain fart right now, but overall, it's just terrible, dude. It's been terrible bad picks after bad picks for the Indianapolis Colts, and it's just like, Phillip Rivers, we're going to get him right now? Phillip Rivers, out of all people, washed up Phillip Rivers, a washed up Matt Ryan. That's who I was thinking about, Matt Ryan. Just a trash quarterback, washed up. So many washed up quarterbacks. It's just like no one's going to replace Peyton Manning. What we had is just kind of like, the golden days of Indianapolis. Ever since Peyton left, it's kind of been dark days in Indy. It's kind of been like, we have false hope here in Indianapolis where it's like, yeah, we're going to do great things this year. And the reality is, no, we're not. We're going to do terrible things again. We're going to be low 500 again this year. The Colts are going to miss the playoffs again this year. That's the reality of it. We just have another bitter year, another bitter pill to swallow, but the future's bright. I still think Anthony Richardson's going to have a bounce-back season next year. We have Jonathan Taylor coming back. That's the positives for the Colts moving forward. But right now, I just don't see it. I just don't see a lot. Josh Downs is questionable, a star receiver we have for the Colts. But overall, I'm going Indianapolis, and I'd go with the under here. 43.5 is the over-under. I'm leaning more towards the under. I mean, we look at the Patriots and realize, well, they have a trash quarterback as well. Mac Jones, he's trash. He just comes from a great college program in Alabama. If he didn't go to Alabama and he went to any other school that didn't win a national championship, Mac Jones really probably wouldn't be in the NFL. Like, really, Alabama and Coach Saban saved Mac Jones. Like, that's why he's in the NFL right now, because of Alabama, because of what Saban did to him to elevate his career, to say, hey, Mac Jones is the future of New England, but really he's not. He's got 10 tutties and 9 picks. Like, he's terrible, dude. He's just terrible, man. He's afraid to get hit. It's just, it's sad to watch. It's like, Mac Jones, this guy, you guys really believe in him, dude? Like, continue dreaming, because you guys are only going to win 3 or 4 games a year starting Mac Jones. So let's see how far the Patriots go. But the Patriots are going to get ran through. The Indianapolis Colts are going to run all over the New England Patriots, and we're going to win in a relatively easy way. I'm going to say 7-24 Indianapolis all day. Take off Indianapolis Colts. Take off Jonathan Taylor. Take out Germany. Let's go! And then we got the Tennessee Titans versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 3-point favorites, and honestly, this game is such a coin flip game. And I think it all boils down to Will Levis, the rookie quarterback, who I think is going to stay there for years. I think the next decade, I think Will Levis could start in Tennessee. That's the potential I see in Will Levis. That's another thing that the Colts skipped out on. We could have had Will Levis here. Looking at Will Levis, he looks a really good, decent quarterback that likes to stay in the pocket, likes to take chances, isn't afraid to get hit. That's the type of quarterback I want if I'm a head coach. But, last game, it was shaky. Playing against the Steelers last week, he had 262 yards and an interception. So it wasn't the best game for Will Levis, but I'm looking for a bounce-back game here. I think he's going to throw for a couple touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a great game, a must-start in fantasy. He's got 3 tutties this year, 564 yards receiving, and then Derrick Henry over 600 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. And I'm going with the upset pick here. I'm going to go Tennessee Titans. Yes, over the Bucs, even though the Bucs consistently have looked pretty good. They got great receiving cores. Mike Evans, one of the best receivers in the league, almost 600 yards receiving and 5 tutties. Rashid White, 378 yards rushing and 3 tutties. And then Baker Mayfield, over 1,800 yards passing, which he's had a pretty decent year this year. 12 touchdowns and 4 picks. But it's a typical Baker Mayfield, right? The sober Johnny Manziel, in the playbook, doing the right things. But to win a Super Bowl, I don't think Baker Mayfield is the guy. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that Baker Mayfield is he's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's a good, decent quarterback. I think he's a solid second string on a playoff team here. So I think overall, looking at this matchup, I'm going Tennessee Titans. I think Will Levis is going to outplay Baker, and they're going to outplay the Bucs. Even though this game's going to come down the wire, I like the Tennessee Titans with the upset. 39.5 is over-under. I mean, typically, I would say under, but it's so low. I'm going to go with the over here. I think Will Levis is going to throw the ball out. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a must-bet. But over 100 yards receiving, I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a breakout game here like he did about a month ago. So I like the Tennessee Titans over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Take off Tennessee. And then we got the Houston Texans versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 6.5-point favorites. And the Bengals right now, they're looking like the old Bengals that we're used to seeing. The Bengals that ran deep and went to the Super Bowl, even though they lost. I think this is the same Cincinnati team that we're starting to see that, hey, if they make a playoff push here, they can win the Super Bowl. And it starts with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow starting to look like himself from last year, scrambling out of the pocket, making plays, not being injured. I think it was his right calf he injured in training camp over the summer. So I think right now I got to go Bengals. Even though the Texans are playing nice with C.J. Stroud, who I do believe is a top 10 quarterback right now in the league, which sounds crazy. It sounds cap. It really does. But C.J. Stroud, dude, 14 touchdowns and only 1 pick, like 2,270 yards passing as a rookie. He's putting up insane numbers. So shout out to C.J. Stroud, heck of a quarterback, top 10 quarterback right now. He's playing like it. Honestly, he's playing like a top 5 quarterback. So shout out to C.J. Stroud. Nico Collins, 631 yards receiving and 4 tutties for the Texans. I think this is going to be a really close game. The safer bet is moneyline Bengals, but I like the Bengals here. Joe Burrow, 12 tutties, 4 picks, and then you got Joe Mixon with 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, almost 700 yards receiving and 4 tutties. T. Higgins is out with a hamstring injury, which sucks. And the downside, Jamar Chase having a great season. He's questionable with the back injury right now. So I think, looking at this, T. Higgins out, they need Jamar Chase. If Jamar Chase is going to be out here, I would say the upset with the Texans. I think the Houston Texans, people sleep on them, including myself. But after watching C.J. Stroud ball out week after week, it's just like, dude, it's hard not to. It's hard not to admit that, hey, C.J. Stroud is a top 10 quarterback. C.J. Stroud is making the right reads. He is sitting in the pocket. He is, not fear. He doesn't have fear right now. So I think C.J. Stroud has really put a lot of people on the map to say, hey, I should have been the number 1 overall pick. Even though I went 2, I should have been in Carolina right now instead of Bryce Young. That's how C.J. Stroud is playing. He's playing with a mission, playing with a chip on his shoulder. Shout out to C.J. Stroud, but I'm going Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going Joe Burrow. The way they're playing, 46.5 is the over-under. I probably lean more towards the under in this matchup, But I think Joe Burrow right now, in that offense, what they're doing, they're starting to get their groove back, and their defense is playing better. I got to go Cincinnati at home. Even though this is an upset alert game, I'm still going Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow over the Houston Texans. Let's go with this matchup. I can't wait for that. And then we got the Green Bay Packers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are 3.5-point favorites. You know, with Kenny Pickett, almost 1,500 yards passing with 6 tutties and 4 picks. And then you got Jordan Love. He's really had a quiet year. You know, 12 touchdowns and 8 picks over 1,700 yards passing. But overall, just Green Bay just doesn't look like themselves. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers being out of Green Bay, out of Lambeau Field, I think right now it's the reality for Green Bay. They're going to miss the playoffs this year. They're rebuilding right now. They really are, and I still say stick with Jordan Love for now, but I'm going Pittsburgh at home. They just play great. You got T.J. Watt and that defense playing on fire, and then you got George Pickens, 521 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. I look for George Pickens to get a breakout game here. Been quiet the last couple weeks, but I think Kenny Pickett needs to target George Pickens like how Dak Prescott should target CeeDee Lamb. They need to throw him the ball 10-plus times a game. George Pickens is probably the best offensive player on Pittsburgh right now. Yes, George Pickens, he's so talented. He can get open, even though he did mess up last week and he had a touchdown, didn't drag his foot in time. But, you know, that's just learning experience. He's still young, and I still think there's so much talent in him. Najee Harris, 2 touchdowns, looking for him to get back in the groove. He's starting to look like the Najee Harris from Alabama days. But overall, I'm going Pittsburgh here. I think Green Bay, just with Jordan Love right now, like I said, they're on the rebuilding year. So it's just going to be a long season for Green Bay, you know, without Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll take the 3.5. 38.5 is the over-under. Probably lean more towards the under, which sounds insane. It sounds ridiculous. But I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers over the Green Bay Packers. This is going to be an epic matchup. And then we got the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are 6.5-point favorites, and everything starts with Lamar Jackson. You know, if Lamar Jackson continues to play at the level he's playing at, you know, we can see the Ravens in the Super Bowl. We really can. I mean, they're starting to get the tools. Gus Edwards starting to look like the starting running back right now with 7 touchdowns, almost 500 yards rushing. And then you got Mark Andrews, 477 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. I'm telling you right now, I just think overall with how the Ravens, how Harbaugh coaches that, John Harbaugh, what a heck of a coach. I think really this is the Ravens' game to win, but I do think they're on upset alert here. I think Deshaun Watson starting 6 touchdowns, 3 picks this year. I scooped them off waivers because Tua's on a bye week. So I got to start Deshaun Watson. I expect him to have a big game here. You're playing against a rival. You're playing against Lamar Jackson. And you got Amari Cooper with over 600 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. I think this is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think it's going to come down to the game-winning field goal. And I think, you know, I'm going with the upset alert game here. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns over the Baltimore Ravens. I do. I think they're going to win by a game-winning field goal. It has nothing to do with Lamar Jackson. Like I said, Lamar's playing at an MVP-like level. If Lamar continues to play what he's like, we can arguably say, hey, Lamar Jackson deserves MVP this year. He's putting his team on his back week after week. Literally, that's what he's been doing for the past 3 or 4 years in Baltimore, putting the team on his back. So shout out to Lamar Jackson, even though he's going to take it out at home this weekend. I can't wait for this matchup, but that's my upset alert game. One of them is the Cleveland Browns over the Baltimore Ravens. Take off Deshaun Watson. No more freaking massage parlors. No more. So I got the Cleveland Browns. And then we got the San Francisco 49ers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. San Francisco's 3-point favorites, which sounds pretty crazy, right? I mean, we look at Brock Purdy and realize, hey, he is human. He is the last pick of the draft 2 years ago. We know these type of things, and he's playing like that right now. The past couple games, we see Brock Purdy like, whoa, who's he throwing to? Like, what is going on with Brock Purdy? Why is he making these type of decisions? Why is he making these type of throws? But overall, I do think they're on upset, and I'm going with the Jags here. I'm going with the Jags at home, even though they do have Christian McCaffrey, 9 touchdowns this year, on pace. Dude, he just scores every single week. I think it's been 18 weeks in a row. 17 weeks in a row for Christian McCaffrey to have a touchdown at least, which is insane. McCaffrey definitely the highest paid running back for a reason. He's the best running back in the league. Well deserved. And then we got Deebo Samuel. He is back. It does make sense for me to go 49ers. But the way Brock Purdy's been playing, he's got to have a bounce-back game here. But I think Trevor Lawrence is going to outplay Brock Purdy. Trevor Lawrence, 1,935 yards passing with 9 touchdowns, 4 picks. ETN, 583 yards rushing and 7 tutties. Christian Kirk, 3 touchdowns, over 500 yards receiving. I'm telling you, Jacksonville, a lot of people sleep on Jacksonville. I said from week 1 that they're going to win their division. They're going to win the AFC South. Easy. I mean, you have the Colts in there. You have the Houston Texans. They're just trash. The Tennessee Titans. I like the Jacksonville, man. I think Jacksonville's going to win. They have the recipe to beat San Francisco right now. I really do. I just think San Francisco, they're being human right now. Brock Purdy is looking like a quarterback that's like, all right, like, a couple more weeks of this, like, we're going to bench Brock Purdy. To whereas everybody was giving Brock Purdy praise, like, he's the next Tom Brady in this, and it's like, hey, reality's setting in right now. Reality will smack you in the face, no matter how talented you are here in life. Like, it's crazy. Like, but I'm going Jacksonville Jaguars with the upset. I think Trevor Lawrence has a huge game here at home, and ETN's going to run all over. Even though San Francisco has a great defense, I still think they are a beatable team. So I like the Jacksonville Jaguars over the San Francisco 49ers. 44.5 is the over-under. Probably, honestly, more towards the over here. I think it's going to be a little bit high scoring. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to throw the ball out. Same thing as Brock Purdy has so many talented receivers there. It makes Brock Purdy look good. I mean, you have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Like, dude, like, what more do you need? Like, there's just so much talent there. But I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars with the upset at home. Take off Jacksonville. Let's go. And then we got the New Orleans Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings. Look, Minnesota right now with Josh Dobbs coming from Arizona, what he did last weekend, man, all the momentum. I'm going Minnesota here. I think Minnesota has the recipe to do it, even although KJ Osborne is questionable with the concussion and TJ Hawkinson is questionable with the rib injury, which is huge losses. Now, obviously, if these two guys don't play, I'm obviously going to go Saints, but right now I'm going Minnesota. I'm going Minnesota. I think right now Jordan Addison with 7 tutties. I got on my fantasy squad. I just think right now Minnesota's on a mission. Ever since Kirk Cousins got hurt, what a coincidence, right? Kirk Cousins got hurt. They started winning more games here. Isn't that crazy? Kirk Cousins was not the hero for Minnesota. He was actually the problem for Minnesota. He was the problem, dude. Kirk Cousins is not that type of guy. He's just not a Super Bowl winning champion quarterback. That's who Kirk Cousins is. He's a trash quarterback at best, dude. A lot of people like to hype up Kirk Cousins. I don't know what people see in Kirk Cousins because I think he's a trash quarterback. I really do. That's why he's all on the couch right now recovering from a torn Achilles, which I hope he recovers. But overall, his career's over. His career's long gone. It's done. But I'm going Minnesota. I think Josh Dobbs is going to have another big game. And then Derek Carr, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks this year. 2,121 yards of passing. Then you got Kamara with 2 tutties. Chris Olave, 563 yards receiving and 2 tutties. I mean, the Saints, obviously they're favorites. They should be by 2. I just think Minnesota right now, like I said, they have something to prove here. It's like a playoff game to them. After, the injuries they've been taking with Justin Jefferson being out, who knows when he's coming back. I thought by now he'd be back by now, but he's just not. So hopefully Justin Jefferson comes back in the next month or so. But right now I like Minnesota over the New Orleans Saints. Another upset game, another underdog. 40.5 is the over-under. This is tricky. I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say go with the over. I really am. But I like the Minnesota Vikings over the New Orleans Saints. I can't wait for this matchup. And then we got the Atlanta Falcons versus the Arizona Cardinals. Falcons are 2-point favorites. They're switching back between Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, which, I think they should go with Taylor Heineke right now. The more experienced quarterback, I think that's what Atlanta should go. You got Drake London with 2 touchdowns, over 400 yards receiving for Atlanta. And then Arizona, Kyler Murray is returning after 11 months after the ACL injury. I think right now with Arizona, with Kyler Murray returning, I'm going to go Arizona out on a limb here. I think Kyler Murray has something to prove all his naysayers, all his doubters, saying that's it, his career's over. I think Kyler Murray is really a nice quarterback. I wish he never would have got hurt last year. It was a non-contact play. I saw it live, and I was just like, oh, that did not look good. That did not look good, but Kyler Murray, he is a heart of a champion, heart of a lion, and I do think he's going to bounce back this game. He's got Marquise Brown, 4 touchdowns, 440 yards receiving. I'm going Arizona, which sounds really petty here. I mean, obviously, Atlanta should win this game, but I like Arizona. I really do. I think Kyler Murray returning, the fans being in Arizona, I think that's going to give a boost. So I'm going Arizona Cardinals with the upset again. A lot of upset games this weekend over the Atlanta Falcons. 43.5 is the over-under. I'll probably go with the under, but I like the Arizona Falcons with Kyler Murray. Take off, Kyler Murray, please. One time for the one time. And then we got the Detroit Lions versus the LA Chargers. This is probably the best matchup all weekend. This is such a coin flip game. The Lions are 3-point favorites. Jared Goff, what a season this year. Over 2,100 yards passing with 12 tutties and 5 picks. St. Brown, 665 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. I think obviously the Lions are nice, but you know what? I'm going to go again, the upset game, another underdog game. I'm taking the LA Chargers. I think Justin Herbert at home, you guys got to win this game. This is really a big win if the Chargers beat the Lions. Even though the Lions are a great team, they really are. I just think right now, Justin Herbert, over 2,000 yards passing, 13 tutties and 4 picks. He's got Eckler with 3 touchdowns. I think Eckler is the X factor every single week for the Chargers. If he plays nice, yes, they will win. But if he doesn't, typically the Chargers lose. And then you got Keenan Allen, one of the best receivers in the league, 720 yards receiving and 4 tutties. I just like the Chargers here. At home, it's an afternoon game. I think, looking at the Chargers here, I just think they've lost some games where they should have won. And this is the game where they should lose, but they need to win this game. This is a rebound game for them. I like them to beat the Lions. I really do. Even though Jared Goff's having a great season, the Lions are having a great season. But I'm going Chargers here. 48.5 is the over-under. Man, I'm leaning more towards the over right now. I might end up changing that, but I'd say the over at the moment. But right now, I'm going with the Chargers here. Playing at home, Justin Herbert. If you guys are a playoff team, this is the game you need to win here. If you guys want to make the playoffs, this is a must-win game. If you guys want to run deep in the playoffs this year, this is a must-win game. You got it. This is a huge test for them. Beat the Detroit Lions, who are a really great team. So I like the Chargers over the Detroit Lions. And then we got the New York Giants versus the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys get another cupcake easy team. Dallas, I just think 17-point favorites. I'm going to go Dallas, but I'm going to go money line with the safer bet. I think Dak Prescott over 2,000 yards passing, 13 tutties, 5 picks. And then the best player on the Dallas Cowboys is CeeDee Lamb. 5 touchdowns, 824 yards of receiving. But, the Giants, Daniel Jones out for the season. I feel bad for Saquon Barkley. Really doesn't have much help there. The offensive line is terrible as well in New York. Giants, I just think overall you're playing in Dallas. This is all Dallas here. And this doesn't prove anything if Dallas blows out, the Giants. It doesn't prove me anything. All it proves to me is another win by Dallas Cowboys in the regular season, and that's going to lead up to the playoff heartbreak loss that's going to happen in the future. That's what the Dallas Cowboys are. They choke, dude. They choke so much. They choke more than the slut on the corner, dude. They really do. They choke more than her, and it sucks. It sucks to admit that the Dallas Cowboys they love sucking dick, dude. They really do. Excuse my profanity, but seriously, they just love to do that. But I'm going Dallas Cowboys. I'm going Dak Prescott. I believe in you guys this week, but you're playing against the Giants. They suck. I'm going Dallas Cowboys money line all day in this matchup. 38.5 is the over-under. Probably, honestly, the under because the Giants don't score a lot of points, but I like Dallas with, really a relatively easy game over the trash New York Giants. And then we got the Washington Commanders versus the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are 6-point favorites here. Geno Smith, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. My issue with Geno Smith is a lot of inconsistency. Some games he'll come out playing great. Then other games he'll be like, this is just not a starting quarterback what he would do. So I want to see Geno Smith, the Geno Smith that we know, the smart Geno Smith making the right decisions. You have great players around you. You have Kenneth Walker with 6 touchdowns. You got Tyler Lockett, who was definitely a sneak pick that I picked up in the 10th round in one of my fantasy leagues. Shout out to Jay Dunsey, man. Shout out to Dunsmore one time. Really, Tyler Lockett is that guy. He's one of those receivers where he's like, hey, we need a guy like Tyler Lockett who's going to get open, who's going to make big plays down the stretch for you in the fourth quarter. So I love Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf, 2 tutties. But the Washington Commanders, man, are no joke. They really are. I mean, Sam Howell, 2,471 yards passing with 14 touchdowns and 9 picks. And then you got Brian Robinson Jr., 447 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin, 2 touchdowns. I think Washington could really win this game. And I'm going to be upset if I get every upset game wrong this weekend except this one. Even though I'm going to go with Seattle, I think the Commanders definitely have a shot here. It starts with the run game, though. I think Sam Howell and Brian Robinson got to get that run game going to open up the throwing lanes. I really do. I'm going Seattle, though. I think Seattle's the better team that have a way better coach than the Washington Commanders. Shout out to Pete Carroll, even though he had the worst play call in Super Bowl history, to throw the ball on the 1 yard line and not run it with beast mode, Marshawn Lynch. I mean, I'll never forget that. That's a no-brainer. You know, it just happens. It really does. But I like the Seattle Seahawks at home. I'll take the 6 points. 44.5 is the over-under. I'll go with the under. But I love Seattle Seahawks at 6 all day in this matchup. And then we got the Sunday Night Football game, the New York Jets versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Couldn't get really any shittier than that. I mean, the Jets, they've gotten lucky after lucky each game this year. I mean, they're 1-point favorite right now, but honestly, I'm going to go Raiders here with the new coach, you know, really a new system right now. They're really hitting the reset button, you know, which sounds crazy, but the reason I'm going the Raiders is because of their defense and Max Crosby. What he's been able to do for the defensive line for the Raiders has been magnificent. I mean, putting pressure on the quarterback every single play, playing every single play like it's his last play in the NFL. I love it, dude. I think the Raiders are here and they're going to win, and I think they're going to win also on the offensive end with Josh Jacobs. Over 500 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs on my fantasy squad, I expect him to score a couple tutties, rush for over 100 yards. Davante Adams, I think he's going to have a breakout game here. There were rumors that they were going to trade Davante Adams. I'm so glad they didn't. But Davante Adams, 573 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. I love the Raiders here. Zach Wilson just really inconsistent. 1,600 yards passing, 5 touchdowns and 5 picks. Breece Hall, 2 touchdowns, almost 500 yards rushing. And then you got Garrett Wilson with 2 touchdowns. I mean, the Jets, they're a good, nice team. Obviously, if Aaron Rodgers never would have torn his Achilles, I think really the Jets would be the top 2 team in the NFL right now behind the Philadelphia Eagles. I really do. But I think the Jets right now, this is the game where they're going to lose. I think the Raiders and Josh Jacobs and that defensive line with Max Crosby's the difference here. That's why I'm going the Las Vegas Raiders over the trash New York Jets. I can't wait for this matchup. And then we got the Denver Broncos versus the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. The Buffalo Bills are 7-point favorites, and I'm going Buffalo here. This is probably my lock pick game of the week because, I mean, we're talking about the Denver Broncos. Really inconsistent. Russell Wilson is just past his prime. Looks like he doesn't want to play football anymore. It's not the Russell Wilson that we're used to seeing. It's not the hungry Russell Wilson, that's for sure. You know, there's no hunger there. There's no passion that I see anymore, really, in Russell. It's sad to say. You know, 16 touchdowns, 4 picks. Cortland Sutton, 380 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. Some nice stats for Cortland Sutton, but they're taking the L. You know, you're going into Buffalo with Josh Allen, 2,423 yards passing, 18 touchdowns and 9 picks. Then you got Stephon Diggs with 7 tutties, 834 yards receiving. I mean, that duo arguably is the best in the NFL. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, I mean, them two alone just make plays after plays. And I think this is the game on Monday Night Football with everybody watching. Josh Allen's going to have a crazy game. So is Stephon Diggs. These two are must-starts every single week in fantasy football by far. But I love the Buffalo Bills. I'll take the over in this game. I love the Buffalo Bills. They're going to get back on the winning track. My thing is with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, as we get closer to the playoffs, how are they going to play? How's the defense going to play in the playoffs, dude? You're going to have to make stops. You're going to have to beat Cincinnati Bengals. You're going to have to beat some of these teams that you cannot beat. So I think Buffalo Bills are a huge question mark team in the playoffs. It's just like, we don't know. We don't know which team's going to show up. Is it going to be the good Buffalo Bills or the shitty Buffalo Bills that just really are unorganized on offense, just not in the flow of things? So that's the huge question mark, but I love the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. What a Week 10 for the NFL. I think this is one of the hardest weeks yet. A lot of 50-50 games. The Lions-Chargers are definitely a hard pick. You know, then you got the Saints-Minnesota. But my upset alert game, even though I did pick a lot of upsets overall, my biggest upset alert game was definitely the San Francisco 49ers losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's the biggest upset alert game. And then Cleveland over the Ravens. Yes, I get that. I might end up changing that pick to the Ravens later tomorrow, like right before the game. But overall, my biggest game is picking the Jacksonville Jaguars to beat the San Francisco 49ers. Why? Because just what I see from Brock Purdy in that offense right now, it's just not in flow right now. Yes, they're coming off a bye week. They normally play great, but right now, Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars are always doubted right now, which is crazy. How are they always doubted? They're up there right now. They're going to win their division. They're going to be in a playoff team. So I'm telling you, with ETN and Trevor Lawrence and those guys, they're going to take off to my Indianapolis Colts, getting the dub in Germany. Take off, Indianapolis. It's the Cloud with Cab show. Let's